Welcome to today's season review, everyone. It's been a bit of a doozy of a season, to be fair. Had some big players leave, had some old faces return, and as ever, we've got some spicy European gossip to catch up on. Before we kick things off, if you want to do us all a massive favour and drop a like down below, I would really appreciate it. If you're also not subscribed, I saw a stat on my YouTube, Creator Lab, that something like only 20-30% of people who watch the videos are subscribed. So if you're not subscribed, then why not? Just go for it. Just click that little subscribe button down below. It costs you nothing. You can even turn off the notifications as well if you want. But yeah, like I said, it's been a doozy of a season. Some really interesting stories have cropped up. I would try and do my best to hide some spoilers from you as we're going through, but it might be very difficult. But yeah, it's been a hell of a season. But we will start off on transfers and most importantly the outs. So the big one really of the summer was Magnus Kaspersen going to Bayern Munich for 95 million. So we'd signed him, I can't remember how much for, 4.1 million. Loaned him out to HK for a few years. He did really well. He developed incredibly well. And then he came back and really smashed it for us. We've been rejecting bids sort of on and off. And he was sort of basically like a chain of events. It was like Vermink got unsettled, but Kaspersen was happy. And then Vermink left. And then Kaspersen was getting unsettled and unhappy. And in the end, we just had to make the decision to let him go. Obviously, we had Mutzel who went through with that. Vermink went through that. And then Kaspersen all on that left-hand side. But yeah, we in the end, we sold him on to Bayern Munich for 85 mil, and it's potentially going to be 95 mil, which I imagine it will hit. I think it's league appearance based, but I would have thought we would get that extra 10 mil from him. A shame to lose him, really, but we didn't really have much say in it. In the end, we were kind of forced into a corner where we had like team leaders coming to us and saying that you should let him leave, no player should be held against their will, blah blah blah. So yeah, bit of a shame in the end, but I feel like when we signed Max Owen on a free, and the way the tactic has kind of changed a little bit this season, we've kind of managed without really. We kind of got by, and we've not completely changed the tactic yet. We just tweaked a couple of roles, but we have settled on a new tactic, which I think we will eventually transition to. So you'll remember last time that we were saying about Arias was in the middle of a transfer bid from Aston Villa. We basically used the interest between West Ham and Villa to get the highest price for him. And he went to Villa for 40 million. It's nice to see that he's played quite a bit as well. So good on him. We'd sort of, established early on that he was only ever going to really be like a bit part, sort of rotational option for us. We were always going to be looking for someone a little bit better. And we were just glad that we managed to make the money off him when we did. Next up was a deal I was absolutely astonished we managed to pull off, to be honest with you. So Gaetan Jordan only had a year left on his deal, and he was wanting to leave. We had no chance of renewing his contract. Bear in mind, we'd spent 100 million on this guy from Nantes. Wolves wanted him. He wanted to go to Wolves. Barcelona also wanted him. So like with Arias and, like we've done throughout the save, really. We basically played them off against each other until we got 112 million from Barcelona first. So we made a profit on a player who he signed for 100 million when he only had a year left on his deal. So go figure, but we were made up to get that done. He had started to show a not being comfortable in big matches trait as well. So we were quite happy to see him out the door for that amount of money rather than, sort of risk losing him either for nothing or a real cut price. Just another little random one to show you. I don't even think I showed you when this guy signed. This was Ivan Adamovic, who we'd signed from Crvena Zvezda for, I want to say 5 mil. 5 mil. He played one game for us in the league, a few games in the cups, and then Bayern Munich, Leverkusen came and said, "Do you want 15.5 million for him?" And we were like, "Fine." He's not really played much for them, but yeah, very easy money. We knew he was never going to be good enough for us, so he was hopefully going to be a loan farm player, but it never really materialised, and then we got a good chunk of money for him. I can't remember if we'd mentioned De Hoyos last time, but he did end up going to Napoli for 65 million. And he's played quite a lot, to be fair to him. He's done really well. And it's nice to see. He has developed really nicely as well. It's a shame that we did lose him, but he was adamant he wanted the move. So we were kind of backed into a corner with him. So I think we played him a couple of times in Europe, did we? And a couple of times in the Cup. Yeah, 8.75 mil, 52 mil up front, and looks like we're gonna get that 65 as well. I would have thought, because he's certainly making plenty of appearances for them, and he's scoring plenty of goals. So I imagine we'll get that extra money. The next big sale was one we really didn't want to do, and that was Vincenzo Kiriati. He went to Milan. So he's been at Inter then with us, and now he's gone to Milan as well. So basically Barcelona bid for him. I think it was either in the January. I think we might have touched on it last time, how he was unsettled because he wanted to go to Barcelona. And then in the end, Milan bid for him. We negotiated them up to 104, and I think we'd signed him for 183. So it's currently costing 89, but we should really be getting that up for 104. So we actually managed to make a profit on a player we signed for 83 million. Basically, I was hoping Barcelona were going to come in with a bigger bid, but they never did. But we're still going to make a profit on him because, like I said, we should get that 104 full package from him because he's playing plenty of time. So there's no reason why we shouldn't get that money for him, really. And then lastly, we ended up selling Robert Swaby to Atleti. So he'd been really good for us. He'd done really well in that inverted wing-back role that we trained him for. But again, he was another one. Bids kept coming in. He kept getting unsettled and wanting to move. And in the end, we sold him for 45 mil up front, with the potential for it to be 52 mil, which is essentially going to mean that we get back what we spent on him. Bit of a shame that we didn't make a profit on a player who had only improved with us. But again, he was another one. I think he only had a year or two left on his deal, a couple of years maybe. And it just made sense to sort of sell him while we could, to be honest with you. And you know what? We've recovered fine. And that's because we spent 200 million on Simone Delogu from Milan. We had about 750 million in the transfer budget after some of these sales. And this is a guy who he'd actually found when he was about 17 or 18. And at that point, I don't think we were using the system we're using at the moment, and we were put off by his jumping reach for being a defender. But he is pretty decent technically, and he has actually just slotted perfectly into our inverted wing-back role on the right-hand side. It's an awful lot of cash. I'm under no illusion it is an excessive amount of money to have spent on him. But realistically, there was no one else that we could sign at the time who was of, comparable ability. If anything, a bit of an upgrade on Swaby, really. So he was an upgrade on that. He is versatile. He can play in the centre if we wanted him to, but I'm kind of keen to avoid it because of that jumping reach. But yeah, there was another wing back who we found later, who we could have potentially got from Nice, but he was a little bit older, and Nice were just like not budging. He would have cost a similar amount of money as well, by the looks of things. But yeah, we're happy with the logo. He's been really good. As you can see, these ratings are just incredible. So good for what he's giving us. But yeah, we're happy enough with him. Like I said, we had the money to spend. It felt excessive to me at the time, but that was what they wanted, and yeah, we went for it. We also spent 143 million to bring back Jordan Hunt from Man United. He's been around the block, I know. But it's been great to have him back, to be fair. He's been really good. It's been fun to have him around. Obviously, he was a player who kind of left before things really started to take off a little bit for us. He went to Chelsea for like 60 odd mil. And but he counts as homegrown, so there's definitely, there was method to the madness. He knows the club, he knows the league. He's a good, solid player. He's delivered for us quite nicely since he's been back. And again, we had the money, and we needed the player. We needed that, like, a body in midfield, and he has the versatility to also play at right back as well if needed. And he can play all along the spine. So yeah, 143 mil was definitely an overpayment, but he's a bit of a club legend. So in some ways, he's only here with us for 4 years, but he made such a massive impact. So yeah, nice to have him back. Before we touch on to the outs of this season, I'm just going to carry on with the ins. So we signed Simon Jorgensen. So scouts found him. He was wanted by some Premier League teams, so we moved to bring him in earlier to try and then potentially use that interest from other clubs to see if we could potentially garner a profit going down the line. Who knows, he might actually turn into a very, very good player for us anyway, but definitely bought him with like a sell-on sort of plan in the back of my mind. He's not comfortable in big matches, which, don't get me wrong, it's not the end of the world, but I do find it a little bit of a nick with some of these players. But 12.5 mil from Midtjylland. He's been fairly solid in the games he's played for us so far. I've mainly been playing him on the left, but sometimes through the middle. So yeah, happy enough with him, and we'll see what happens. Kind of in the same vein, we signed Sebastian Vivas from Argentinos Juniors. So we'd actually found him quite a while ago, but foreign player, etc. We kind of didn't really feel like we needed him at the time with Alexandre Andre. But we decided to bring him in for 13.25 mil, just given the success we've had with Arias, etc. We thought we might as well bring him in and see if we can sort of flip him for a profit in the future. He's a decent little player. He was happy to come in. He likes big matches as well. So we thought, yeah, for 13.25 mil, we'll see what we can squeeze out of him before we move him on. The other really big signing we've made was signing Ewan Harrop for 113 million from Aston Villa. So we signed him to potentially play in the midfield in either the Regista or the Volante role. But as the tactic that we've got so far has kind of developed and the potentially new tactic that we might transition to, we'll probably actually look to just use him on the left-hand side potentially as an inside forward. He's got good dribbling, good finishing, good pace. He just, like, at the time we thought he'd be a really dynamic central midfielder to have because he's so quick. He can just sort of make busting runs. He's got really good natural fitness just to hopefully do it for days. But I can see us actually just moving him out onto the left. And as you can see, so far, so good for him with what he's delivered. He got a hat-trick in our cup game that we've just played as well. Admittedly, it was against the Minnow. But yeah, all these lovely pros here is just what we like. Another signing that we were pretty happy with was Attilay Kapuzaj coming in from Fenerbahce for 11.75 mil release clause. 18-year-old, can play in the number 10 slot, which realistically is where we're going to be looking to use him. We might end up changing the tactic though, but we'll see. But at the moment, we're still rocking the 4-2-3-1, and he would slot quite nicely into that if we can develop him a little bit more. He's got some great technicals, some really appealing mentals, some lovely little physicals going on if we can develop the rest. I think he could be a good player for us, but failing that, I'm sure we can find him a decent little loan move as well to begin with, and hopefully he can help out the loan farm at the same time. The new tactic, I think we did mention last time, we would potentially be looking to employ a back three with that. So with that in mind, we signed Armando Mioch, who is someone who we had found a couple of years ago at Genoa, but at the time we just didn't really need him. But we brought him in for 109 million. Genoa, interestingly enough, by the way, just won Serie A, which is fantastic. It's been basically just the Milan boys for the last 15 years, sort of alternating between Inter and Milan. And Genoa have broken that and they won it this year. But Mioch has come to us. He's 23 years old from Mozambique. And we're just trying to work on a few of these technicals, just get his passing up a little bit. But he's a good, solid defender. And I think he'll be a good player for us when we bring him sort of through properly. If we do, especially if we do transition to that back three, I think he'll be really, really good for that. He's just a solid tackler and he'll just break up the play really nicely. We did sign just like a few other little loan farm type players, young players who are looking to potentially look to move on down the line, but into the loan farm. But we'll see what happens with them. The first out in the January was Tord Mahler, who went to Porto for 37 million. So we signed him on a free from odds. He hit the ground running. He actually did really, really well. But as we said last time, we didn't think he was going to be, one sort of to really hang our hat on. And then January came in. We had bits from like Chelsea and that, and he was raging. And we thought, you're not good enough. Just a reminder of what he is as a player. We thought, you're not good enough to really sort of die on this hill of really trying to keep you. So we ended up selling him to Porto for 29.5 million. There's potential for that to be 37, which we should get because he's playing plenty. So happy with that one. One we were less happy with was the sale of Carlos to Chelsea. So he had 2 years left on his deal. We were constantly fending off bids for him. And then Chelsea came in and he was like, it's going to take a lot to keep me here now. So we thought we'll cash in now, especially when they came in and we managed to negotiate them up to 73 mil. We signed up for 66 mil in his release clause. So basically to get 59 mil up front and then 73 mil guaranteed really with appearances and stuff like that shouldn't be an issue. I mean, look at that, 4 goals in 4 games in the league for them. So he's absolutely flying there. And he did really well for us. It was a shame to see him go. But it was one of them where we couldn't really fight it any longer. Another player who left was Carlos Francis. So he'd been with us for 5 years. We brought him in from Liverpool. It helped really sort of drive the tactic forward because he could play quite comfortably as either as a volante on support or a regista. We mainly used him as a regista, but he did have the versatility to play elsewhere. In roles that we needed him to, he filled in quite nicely when like Andre was injured, etc. as the advanced playmaker on the right. And we'd signed him, I think, for something like 62 million. And then Al Ahly came in and basically are going to give us 62 million for him. So straight swap. He gave us a lot. The loss of profit is easily mitigated by how much he sort of helped us over the years. He really sort of made that Regista role his own once Schumacher left. So yeah, you know, good bit of business for a 29-year-old from our point of view to get that money for him, and he is making an absolute bank out there. So yeah, that we were quite happy with that. The last big out in the January was Mohamed Sangare. So he'd been out on loan at Hafnarfjordur for about 3 years. We signed him from Bordeaux, I think, for like 21.5 mil. Definitely felt like we'd overspent, but he contributed to us. He contributed to Hafnarfjordur. For some reason, Hafnarfjordur didn't renew his loan deal, and then when he came back, United were like, "Can we give you like 27.5 up to 31.5 mil for him?" And I was like, "Yeah," because like I said, I definitely felt so. It was 18 mil up front, and then it would have been 21 mil in installments. Because I definitely felt like we'd overpaid on him. So to make a profit on a player who we'd kind of, when we'd signed him, had realised, except the fact that we were probably not really going to see all of that back. But he delivered well for Hafnarfjordur on the loan farm, and then yeah, to get a profit on him, we were delighted. I'm just going to try and quickly fly through some of the European games, just because there's a lot to touch on from our point of view, and I'm determined to try and do it without giving too much away. So Vikinga went in the Conference League again, and you may remember last time they got knocked out by Servette. And this year, unfortunately, they just couldn't get past Slavia Prague. Really disappointing for, you know, they've been in the Conference League the last couple of seasons, and for them to not really get there at all this time was a real shame. Yeah, 5-2 on aggregate, I think it was, they lost, yeah. So disappointing, because it was definitely a loss of coefficient points there as well. But Fram did get through to the Europa Conference League. They did get knocked out at the Europa League, and they were really unlucky to just miss out on a top 8. They had 4 wins against Shamrock, Prem, Škoupy and Legia Warsaw, but they did lose to Varberg, so I felt like they should have done better against them. They did also lose to Braga as well. But yeah, they would go through into the next round. Just to quickly show you, by the way, obviously, just a reminder, they got knocked out by Crvena Zvezda in the Europa League last time. They would overturn a deficit to PSV, and they would come back to win 5-0 at home, before losing 5-3 on aggregate to Basel in the Europa League, and that was what saw them drop down to the Conference League. But as you can see, they actually did pretty well. Really, they got to the quarterfinals, which is incredible for them. Like I said, this is only like their 3rd or 4th season in Europe, so you know, for a long time. As you can see, they flew past Niki Valou. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but yeah, what's that? 11-2 on aggregate, and then they got past PSV again, winning 6-4 before they, you know, West Ham. Good Premier League opposition. You know, they've just spent, in the last 2 seasons, they spent like 200 million on 2 of our left wingers, so and a few other players of ours as well. And you know, for Fram to, you know, to lose 4-1, I think there's no real shame there. Excuse me, and hopefully they can just push on. Then obviously next up was the Europa League, where we had Breitha and Hafnarfjordur. Breitha came in 6th, which was fantastic. I mean, these wins, look at that, 3-0 against Juventus, 3-0 against Dortmund, 2-0 against Getafe, a team who they have lost to in recent years. Some really impressive results then, which then begs the question how they didn't manage to beat Zagreb or Apoel, and how they, well, actually, no, losing to Arsenal away from home, fair play. But it's the draws which I think, you know, are a real letdown, because that was a definite loss of coefficient points. And that has very much been a trend this season in Europe across all competitions. It's felt like teams have picked up results where they maybe didn't expect to, us included, and dropped points where they really wouldn't have expected to as well. Hafnarfjordur were terrible. They literally just about managed to sneak through with wins against Rinski and Elect and Servette, but they were losing to like Trabzon, Nice, Waalwijk, Hoffenheim, Getafe. I mean, realistically, they should be beating Trabzonspor and Waalwijk, and realistically, Hoffenheim, the teams they've all beaten before. But Nice do seem really strong, to be fair. But yeah, really disappointing for me, to be honest with you, that they didn't do as well as they did, because they've been so good for us in recent years. They definitely dropped the ball this time. But they did, however, at least do something right, and that was they got past Club Brugge in the playoff round, 6-2 on aggregate, with a 3-2 win and a 3-0 win to get the job done. But when it came to the round of 16, they would lose to Nice, who we said did seem really, really potent. But meanwhile, Breitha would rely on a 3-1 win away from home to get them through with a 0-0 draw at home against Espanyol. So that was really good progress. But then it would be their turn to come up against Nice, and as you can see, they lost 5-1 on aggregate. Real shame. But yeah, for them, they got to the quarterfinals, so you know that's something there really, and we just need them to sort of push on from that now. And then I'm just going to quickly break down the Champions League phase again, just for the interest of haste. We were terrible. We were really bad. We think the last few years we've like reliably sort of come near the top 8 or in the top 8. 3 wins, 2 draws, and 3 losses. The wins against Galatasaray, Ajax, and Marseille, fine. The draws, to United and Chelsea, fine, respectable. The 1-0 loss away at Partizan and the 3-1 loss at home to Lyon, with a 2-1 loss away to Newcastle, less so. The Partizan game, I'm just going to show you the match stats. Like, what the hell? Why could we not score? Absolutely livid with that one. Absolutely dominated them. Just could not get the ball in the net. And the Lyon one was just pure ridiculous. Like, I think a couple of set piece goals and then the own goal from Capellas just absolutely killed us off. Ridiculous. I don't know why it's showing this formation. This is the formation we're potentially going to try, but this isn't the formation we used in this game. We used the 4-2-3-1. I think basically what happens is if they've been training this tactic, or if we've basically been messing around with the tactic and we've had it loaded in the tactic screen, but then when we come to the match tactic screen, like on the match preview, we then revert to the 4-2-3-1, but it still seems to accept this is the primary tactic, even though you've changed it. But yeah, this is kind of what we're looking at. I'll go through it. So striker here, inside forward, winger, inverted wing back, probably a Regista or a Volante, and a deep line playmaker with a traditional wing back on this left-hand side, and then basically ball-playing defenders and a central defender. We may look to use a libero again, but for now we might just go with this. We're not sure yet. It's still very much in its infancy, but we're sort of trying to gear up the squad for it, and the recruitment potentially is hopefully there now if we want to transition to this. But for now, the 4-2-3-1 is generally doing okay. Basically, the reason we were considering a tactics change was just because of the players we lost. We were struggling to replace them with players of similar ability, but we could find players of good ability elsewhere on the pitch, which we thought, well, if we can get 3 really good defenders, it doesn't matter if we've lost a really good number 10, because we might not play with a 10, we might play more like this. We would look to get a bit of sort of presence here from the midfield and from the wing back, really. So yeah, we might look to do that. HK, meanwhile, came in 13th. They beat Charleroi, Monaco, Bratislava, and Villarreal. They got draws against Shakhtar and Liverpool. Probably really would have been ideal if they'd have beaten Shakhtar. They probably should have done. And then losing to Leverkusen and Valencia. Again, I felt like they probably should have won those games. But I feel like they're good enough to, especially when they finished above both teams. But yeah, to come into the top half is really good. Now, again, in the interest of trying to avoid the spoilers, I'm not going to show you the map breakdowns too much. But at this stage, I'll do it more when we you'll see anyway. Knockout playoff round. HK got past Marseille 2-1 on aggregate. Beautiful. We got past Genoa 4-3. They did not make it easy for us. You can kind of see why they won the Serie A. They were really strong, really, really good. Yeah, really. For the time, I thought we were going to bottle it, because I think it was the second leg. We were 2-0 down. Yeah, we were 2-0 down and then managed to pull it back. But yeah, it was nearly not fun. HK would be unfortunate enough to play Real Madrid in the round of 16, and they got absolutely battered in Spain in the second leg. They did only lose 1-0 at home, which, you know what, fair play. That's a decent sort of respectable performance, but they just got battered, absolutely battered in Madrid, which we kind of expected, really. We, on the other hand, would go up against Newcastle, who we had lost to pretty much every other time we played them. And we would somehow scrap back a 3-3 draw at home with Arvaseta scoring an absolute peach of a goal. And boy, do we make the most of that lifeline that he threw us with that. And we managed to win 1-0 away at Newcastle to see us through into the quarterfinals. We would play Inter Milan, who we'd beaten 4-1 last time we played them away from home. So I was feeling a little bit, not arrogant, but confident that we could get the job done. And when Dejan Dabic, he has been playing a lot on the left. I'll just quickly show you him. He has been really good for us, playing out there, but also through the middle. But yeah, he's been playing out on the left or as a straight number 9. But yeah, he gave us a lead and we thought, brilliant, nice early lead, let's go. And then they pegged us back straight away. And then they scored in the 82nd minute. So again, as you can see, the theme has been dropped coefficient points. We really could have had an absolutely brilliant season if we hadn't dropped so many points as a nation. And then despite the game trying to screw us over, we beat Inter on penalties 5-4. And why I say screwing us over, Henrik comes in, makes what looks on in the match engine a perfectly good sliding tackle in the box to basically clear the ball out for a corner. Gets given as a penalty, which they score, but he also gets injured in the process. So come full time, we had to make the change of him. We had to use up our sort of extra sub. But we got the win on pens, and we were into our first semi-final. And we would play Chelsea, who have knocked us out twice in the last 2 years at the quarter-final stage. But would you believe that we somehow went to Stamford Bridge and managed to win 2-1? And despite missing a penalty, we only went and did it at home, and we won 2-1 against Chelsea to see us through to our first Champions League final, where we will be playing off against Man City in the Olympic Stadium in Berlin. And realistically, with the exception of this one game where we got battered 5-0 in 2034, I mean, they still had Musiala and Haaland at that point kicking around. This is how long ago it was. What's that, 2034? So that's, 18 years ago. Even then, we were sort of pushing them, giving them a good run for their money, losing by the odd goal here and there. But in the last 3 games, we've beaten them 2-1, drew 2-2 both times. I feel like there's the potential for us to potentially do this. I'm not sure. I could be, talking out my arse really. But they are obviously a good team. Let's not make no bones about it. But we only have to look at the Premier League and to see that even when we were giving them a good go, they were coming second, third, first. The last couple of years, they've come fifth, they've come third. Newcastle have won it for the last 3 years in a row. They've actually got Stefan Wilhelmsson, who I think used to be at HK. Let me just check once it decides to load. Yeah, he used to be at HK and then went to Marseille and then went to Man City. So it's going to be tough. We're under no illusion, but maybe this is the right time to play Man City with a potential on a little bit of a wane. I don't know, but we've done it recently. Can we do it again? You'll have to wait until the next episode to find out, because the next episode is going to be that Champions League final, and that should be up about now by the time you're watching this. So head on over and find out how we get on. But yeah, I will see you all there, everyone. Champions League final, first final of the save. For us, obviously Hafnarfjordur have hit 3 European competition finals, but the first Champions League final of the save, we're going to be playing Man City. Oh, I'm nervous, but I'm looking forward to it. Just quickly, actually, because I might forget to do it next time. As you can see, coefficients 18.03 points. Definite upgrade on what we're losing, but it definitely could have been a 20-plus season easily if we hadn't dropped those points or the teams hadn't dropped those points. And certainly in the league phases, we're looking at the games against Partizan, Lyon, etc. And Braithwaite drawing with Apoel and whoever else it was they drew against. But it's just seen us miss the chance to really close a bit of distance to Germany and Italy. But I do think that especially with Germany losing, we're going to basically have a 3.3 point swing on them next year. That realistically should see us start above them going into the next season. So if we can just sort of maintain that over the next sort of 12 months, next season, we should at least be gaining a place, but we might even be able to go above Italy as well. And lastly, quickly, just before I see you in this Champions League final, our prep has not been helped by the fact that we played, 6 games in 2 weeks, essentially. Just sort of 2.5 weeks. 6 games in 2.5 weeks. And we've also just played a cup game on the Wednesday before the final. We did sort of try and rotate it quite a bit. Players like Harrod and Vivas and that aren't registered because they joined in the February after the registration window had closed. So we tried to sort of basically just squeeze as much as we could out of the players who couldn't play, but obviously still not completely possible. Especially when a lot of our youngsters are actually out on loan as well. So we've just basically rested everyone, and hopefully we're going to be fit and ready to go. So I will see you there. Thank you for watching this episode, everyone, and I'll see you in the final.